Nobody wants to die with regrets. Nobody wants to get old and wish they would have done more when they were younger, when they were more agile, or they had that capability. And we live in this society where you work the best years of your life, you slave away, and then you get a little bit of time, if you're lucky enough to be healthy enough to enjoy retirement. You can just start enjoying it in the moment. You can create happiness and adventure in your life. You don't have to fall into this routine. I've always been more chatty extrovert, so I don't have a problem talking to strangers. I'm a firm believer that if I'm traveling somewhere by myself, I meet more people than if I'm traveling with a group of 4 or 5 girlfriends. I've met a lot of people either interested in this lifestyle, and that's kind of how we struck a conversation, or that live this lifestyle, and we've kind of traveled together for a few weeks. I had decided to go to this van meetup, which I haven't done a lot of, and I didn't know anybody else really that was going to be there, but I was like, okay, I'll make the drive. It was a beautiful drive into the southwest corner of Utah. And I ended up meeting some other full-timers that live in vans that also work full-time remotely. And it's actually one of the best groups of people that I've met. And I don't know if it's just where I'm at in my life, but I decided to caravan with them to Lake Powell and down to Sedona. And I met this super awesome girl named Allie, who is 10 years younger than me, but literally connected with her like a sister. And she's into shooting guns, which I think is awesome. My mom and dad shoot guns. So we were like, all right, let's go get some clay pigeons. Allie and this other guy, Kevin, who we've all just become friends over the last few weeks traveling, and we just went out there and had like a great time. I hadn't used her specific type of guns before, and she was like super generous to let me use it and show me exactly how.
Push this in, and then it'll come out. And you have to pump in between each one. So when you re-rack, it's gonna shuffle your next one in.
You don't have to push that button in
every time.
You shoot.
Yeah,
right?
just like if it jams or something. The point, you want to be looking like down the barrel.
Got it. Okay.
And if you miss them, you miss them. You'll figure it out.
Okay.
Do you want to just take a practice shot?
No, go ahead.
Fuck yeah!
Some of the ammo was a little bit stronger and shoulder was a little bit sore for a couple days, but it kind of just felt like back to my country roots. There you go. Woo! Pull.
Yes! Good job!
Kevin's a super cool guy, also kind of 5 or 6 months into living on the road, and was down to ride dirt bikes. And we had met Molly and Steve. They had 2 beta dirt bikes out there, and I was like, do you guys mind if we rip around on them for a little bit? And they were so kind. They're like, here's the keys, here you go. Let me wear their gear. I am a little bit newer at riding dirt bikes. I've rode street bikes much longer. And Kevin was kind of showing me the way, what to do, and standing up and leaning my weight. And we just went off on trails. I do think when you do experiences like this, shooting guns, riding bikes, you bond with people. Like I always tell people, if you go on a hike or go build a campfire or go ride a motorcycle or go skiing, like you learn so much more about that person and about like how you work in those situations as a team. Like you can tell right away if those are your people. So I had a blast. I went back to my camper that night and Allie texted me like, I'm so happy I met you. I know I found a friend for life. And I was like, I feel the exact same way. And I wish that I had made connections like this earlier on. I'm super thankful for them now. But when I started, I met a lot of older retired people and I love that as well. But like I said, meeting people who are in my chapter in life, that was one of the highlights for me in Sedona. And then at night, like we'd all have our vans and rigs in a circle and we would go up to the rooftop. My roof is almost like completely slathered in solar, so I can really only fit 1 or 2 people up there. But Allie's roof has like this nice wooden deck. We could like sunbathe up there if we wanted. We watched the sunset, had some like music playing, and just all we're talking about like just life experiences and getting to know everybody. It sounds so corny and cliche, but like those are the moments I literally just like love and enjoy so much that I'm like, okay, I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm still passionate about it. It's still fulfilling, and it's still new experiences. Like every time you go to a new meetup, like you just don't know where it's going to lead you to the next one. I grew up in a really small town, a little farm town outside of Buffalo, New York. And before I started traveling, I kind of just thought everywhere was like where I grew up. And I traveled quite a bit internationally before I got on the road, but I hadn't traveled a lot within the US. I'd been living in Manhattan for about 4 or 5 years and then Chicago for a year. And I just got sick of the city life. I was tired of every weekend being what's the best brunch spot, let's go to the new bars, and wanted to find a way to get back out in nature. So I started looking around and I ended up buying an Airstream, which is the first vehicle I lived out of. And I had a 6-month plan of how I was going to buy the Airstream and when I was going to transition into that lifestyle. And it ended up being a 3-week, very accelerated process. My plan was to do a 1-year loop around the United States. And then about 8-9 months in, it just quickly became a lifestyle. When I wanted to really get into living in the mountains in the wintertime, I had actually rented an Earth Roamer, which is a super badass rig. Super expensive, but I actually rented one for about 4 or 5 months and I did a 6,000-mile loop hitting 23 of the 26 resorts on the Icon Pass. And that was when I was traveling in that camper, I was like, okay, I'm ready to sell my Airstream. I want an all-in-one unit. I want something that can get me off-road, take me to the cold temps. And I was done with towing a trailer. It was just a lot of work being by myself, setting up camp, breaking camp. And that's when I found the Overland Explorer vehicle that I'm currently in. And it's a fraction of the price, but it's just as great and it takes me anywhere and everywhere I want to go. It's just opened up more doors and opportunities. Even like some BLM land that I could never ever get to towing an Airstream. It's a little bumpy in my truck, but you get there. I actually feel like living in cities kind of prepared me for tiny living. My apartment in Manhattan didn't have a washer and dryer, didn't have a dishwasher, minimal storage. So I was kind of already used to those restrictions, so to speak, but then you really have to downsize quite a bit more when you move into an Airstream or any kind of tiny home. I definitely started choosing quality over quantity in what I did purchase, whether it was gear or clothing, whatever. I could only have 1 or 2 of those things, so I wanted to make sure they were of high quality.
Okay. Yeah, you still have my email? I'll send you an email right now. I'll send you an email and I'll just go over the pickup times and the drop times. Then I know when we shipped this on, was it last month? We paid you $3,800. Let me know if that rate is still good. Okay. Okay, and I think they're open till 6 p.m. So if he's got a later delivery, we might be able to make something work. Okay, sounds good. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.
I started a logistic brokerage about 10 years ago. So I ship raw materials, full truckload, LTL, import, export. And I've been able to work remotely for 10 years, but I never really pushed it to the extremes until about 4.5 years ago when I got on the road. I think having that working remote component was what made it easier for me to get on the road. I have a Verizon Jetpack hotspot. So as long as I have cell signal, I have Wi-Fi and I'm on the phone quite a lot for work. But over the last 4.5 years, I've just kind of avoided the dead zones during the week. And then I can kind of go more remotely on the weekends when I don't have to be tied to a phone.
Okay, and what's your callback number? Any extension? Okay. I actually have a couple. I have one going to Kilgore, one going to Laredo, and one going to two going to Laredo, sorry, and Kilgore, one going to Kilgore. Do you have multiple trucks or just one?
I actually really like working in my truck because I'm talking to truck drivers a lot on the phone, and it's loud, or they're yelling, or I'm yelling, and I don't want to be that person at a coffee shop. Plus, I like being able to do laundry while I'm working, or clean my dishes while I'm working, and just having then more free time after work hours. So I keep East Coast hours. All my customers are on the East Coast. I do spend a lot of my time in Mountain Time Zone, which I kind of like a 6 a.m. start that I'm done kind of by 2 or 3. And most of the time in the winter, I'm around Colorado skiing. So I'll start work at 6 a.m. and there's some days that by 12 or 1, I can actually throw my laptop in my book bag and hit the slopes for a couple hours. Throughout the course of my day with managing my business, there's always something to be done with my truck, whether it's fueling up, filling up my water tanks, scheduling a repair, playing Tetris and organizing things that just always seem to be out of place from driving. So it's kind of nice that I can maintain my work schedule while maintaining my home. My last day in Sedona, we did a pretty cool hike to Cathedral Rock. Short and steep. I think it was 700-800 feet of incline and like maybe 0.7 of a mile. So there were some areas where we were kind of scrambling. It was a little technical. I think there was like 6 or 7 of us van lifers up there. If you were another hiker on the trail, like you would have thought our group would have been close friends for years, and really we had only been traveling together for a few weeks. But then you get to the top and there's just this epic view of a valley. After a very bittersweet goodbye in Sedona to friends, I drove down to Phoenix, and I hadn't actually spent a lot of time in Phoenix, and I absolutely loved seeing all those giant cacti on the road on the way down. I wanted to pull over and take pictures of them. I was kind of racing the sunset to get to camp. I had to make a stop and fill up my water tank, fuel up my truck, and I had to dump my toilet, which people always love to talk about. I have a 5-gallon cassette toilet. I can normally go 4 to 5 days if I'm in the camper all day before having to dump it. I try to dump it a little bit sooner in the summertime because it gets hot, and even with chemicals in it can get a little bit stinky. It's 5 gallons, so a gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds, so it's about 40 pounds, and it sits pretty high up on my camper. So another reason that I try to dump it a little bit sooner, because it's kind of heavy to pull it out from like shoulder height down. And then I just look for a pit toilet or a rest stop, porta potty. I was like very self-conscious about it at first, but now after almost 2 years in this rig, like it's just second nature, and I don't think about it as much anymore, but people love to talk about it. So for me, every couple months or more so with a change of the seasons, I kind of have to do a thorough cleaning of my camper, but also I kind of flip everything. So after ski season, I make sure to really wash my truck, undercarriage, everything, get all the salt off of it, put all my winter clothes into compression bags that somehow fit under the backseat of my truck, get out my summer clothes, change from warm bedding to cool bedding, just all the things that's gonna go from living in 15 degrees to living in 80 degrees. And when I was doing that this season after ski season, I quickly realized that my AC wasn't working. The condenser is mounted on the back of the truck, and I think it rotted out with the salt from being in ski towns for the last 2 winters. So I headed down to Phoenix to see Chris and Michelle. They got me in last minute. They literally worked on my camper for like 8 hours, put in a new condenser, 2 fans, new thermostat. They let me be a part of the whole experience. I actually got to crimp my own lines, which was cool. They let me work from their office with my laptop because I'm still trying to manage running my business from the road. But it was a long day. Like, they stayed late. They didn't even stop to eat dinner or lunch, I don't think. They were extremely hospitable, and it was a good experience, which is not always the case with repairs on the road. I have been in those situations before and not had as great as an experience. After I got my AC fixed in Phoenix, I was kind of looking at the map of where to go next, and actually Kevin, who I'd met a couple weeks prior, was going to be up near Mammoth skiing, and I was like, I could get one more weekend in of ski season. I'd actually never been to Mammoth before. It's been on my list for a while to ski Mammoth, so I was pretty excited. It's mid-May, I didn't think I was gonna get any more ski days in, and I looked at the forecast and they were calling for 11 inches over the next 3 days, and I got really excited. Again, like getting to do these experiences with people who I met a few weeks ago that have now become friends. When things line up like that, again, it's just reassuring. I'm like, okay, you're in the right place at the right time. It just brings happiness to me. I actually was just talking to a guy who's been traveling in a van for about 5-6 months the other night, and he was telling me, he's like, I can't believe like you're doing this as a female. Like there's been so many hesitations and hurdles that I've had as a guy. He's like, it's really impressive that you've been doing it this long by yourself as a female. And I appreciate that. That's not lost on me. It is hard and there are challenges, but it's also not that hard, if that makes sense. It's, you know, it's hard living in Manhattan in an apartment by yourself. Like you can get lonely there, it's expensive. The adventure and the experiences, the people that I've met for sure, just like keep propelling me forward into it.
Like she's just really funny. She's got like,
I used to like always want to have some kind of trip planned. And I was like working for the weekend, living for the weekend mentality. I still work. I actually work more hours now on the road than when I wasn't on the road. But now I just feel like my life is mine. Like I have full control over it. I don't know if it's because I'm projecting into the universe, this is what I want, and I'm manifesting. I want daily, weekly adventures, not just by myself, but with people that I enjoy doing them with. But it's clicking, it's happening. And I'm not trying to like paint it that it's all rainbows and butterflies, but I don't feel restricted and limited in an office, in a cubicle, just working that 9 to 5, waiting for those 2 days of freedom. I'm still working, but like this morning I opened up my camper door and there's a beautiful background of mountains behind me. And in a week I could be by a lake. And I am very thankful and blessed to have this lifestyle, but also I do feel like I am actively creating it. I think at least once a week I get questions, how did you get started on the road? How can I get started on the road? And I tell people, like literally, like just make a list. If you can find one good reason not to do it, then maybe think it through. But don't let that good reason be driven by fear. Even if you try it for 3 months and you're like, it's not for me, I really don't think you'll regret it. There's no wrong way to do it. You can live in your car, you can live in a van, you can live in a school bus. For me, that's not where the focus is. For me, it's what do you want to get out of this? What I get out of it is going to be different than what the next girl gets out of it. You can make this life your own, and you can decide what that looks like. If there's anything I could tell other women, is to embrace the change, to shake things up, to not just go into the mundane routine of life. You know, take that leap of faith, break up with a boyfriend if you're not happy, get the new job if you're not happy with this one. Like you can't predict the outcome, but you have to take a chance, you have to take that risk. Friends, family, strangers ask me, how much longer? When are you gonna end it? When you, like as if it, you could say never, you don't have to. You don't meet somebody and say, well, how much longer are you gonna live in New York? Like as if it's like this phase or whatnot. Even after 4.5 years, there's still so much more I wanna see and do. I'm not ready to stop. I'll know when I am, and it will always be some component of my lifestyle, but I'm happier than ever going forward, continuing on with this lifestyle. I think when all is said and done and we're at that last chapter of our life, me personally, I want to look back and be proud of who I was and how I interacted with people. I want to be proud of how I treated people, but I also want to be proud of the decisions that I made for myself.